Hey, I'm Amanda. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a weekly wrap up. We're going to start out with a book haul that I got from Book Outlet. I'll be right back. Okay, if you've been here for any length of time, you know that I do not have physical books, or I used to not have physical books. And now I've been building up my library slowly. And one of the rules is that I do not pay full price for books. So someone, I can't remember what channel I was watching. If I remember, I'll put it below. But I messaged her, or I commented, and I said, how do you find so many like fantasy and sci-fi books that I've never heard of? Because she's not talking about like the main ones that I keep seeing pop up everywhere. And she said, I just always look at Book Outlet about once a week and see what specials they have and what sales they have. And so I got a large number of books, and it cost me $30 because most of these books were just $1 or maybe $2. So I'm going to go through this list pretty quickly. Jango's here. Jango's here to say hi. He wants to see the new books as well. Okay, so I'm going to try to go through them, and then I have to put them back on a different shelf. I still have my new shelf down here, which is filled up with books. So anyway, here we go. I'm going to start with the smaller one and go up. This is Alyssa Cole, How to Catch a Queen. It's from her Runaway Royals series. It's actually book number 1. This was already on my Storygraph TBR, so I just saw it on there and it was on sale. I got this. I didn't know anything about it, but it's R.A. Salvatore, and it's called Timeless, a Dritz novel. And I was like, hold on, I'm reading about Dritz right now. Let me grab this. So I grabbed it before I looked to see anything about it. Well, it is like book number 17 or something. I had no idea that this just continues, but it does. And if I continue to like it as much as I do, eventually I will get to book 17. Okay, this is Hitman Anders and the Meaning of It All by Jonas Jonasson. And I don't know anything about it except it just looked like it was fun. And maybe a mystery of some kind. I don't know. This is Sanctuary by Luca D'Andrea, I guess is how you say his name. And this was listed under horror. That's all I know about it. So I put in some filters, of course. I wanted fantasy. I wanted some horror, thrillers, mysteries, sci-fi. Those are the kind of filters that I put in there. So this is The Good Lie by Tom Rosenstiel. And I have another of his books that I'll get to. It's in hardback. But I don't know anything about him except, again, this looked good and it was listed as a thriller. So we'll see. This, keeping with the theme of lies, Sarah Zettel, A Mother's Lie. This one I like. At the bottom it says, it's the truth that kills you. So I picked it up. Then my last paperback is Presidio by Randy Kennedy. At the top it just says riveting. And then there's a little book club sticker down here. So it says he was born in San Antonio and I live in San Antonio. So maybe it's got something to do with that. We will find out. I have no idea. All right, hardbacks now. This one is by Katie Henry, Let's Call It a Doomsday. I also love, if you've been here for a while, you know that I love some dystopian things. And so this sounds like they're going to get ready for the end of the world, maybe? I don't know. Again, I'm not great with the book hauls because I don't want to read the back and find out what they're all about. So I based a lot of these just off the category that they were in, the genre that they were listed in, and what the covers look like. That's just what I had to do. I might read like the first line of the synopsis or something, and then that's it. This is called Anyone by Charles Soule. I don't know. And it's like a fingerprint looking thing. And it looks like it's going to be a detective kind of thing or a mystery. This one is a little bit different. It is called Mr. President, How Long Must We Wait? Alice Paul, Woodrow Wilson, and the Fight for the Right to Vote by Tina Cassidy. This book just sounds good. Like it's going to be informational about what happened during the Woodrow Wilson presidency when women were trying to get the right to vote. Okay, this one just looked really cool to me, called Solstice by Lawrence Allison. On the back, it says life's a beach and then you die. So this one, suggested reading, a novel by Dave Conis. I don't know. But it says, what are you missing? With a question mark. So I think this is going to be cool. The back of it has stuff marked out. Anything that's about books and reading, I will pick up and try. This one, Serena Kent, Death in Provence. It just looks like a cool cover. This one looks like it's going to be some kind of dystopian, I feel like. Michael Lawrence, The Extinction Agenda. So some of these are still available on Book Outlet in their 99-cent or $1.99 pile or whatever. So you can go on there and check it out. This is Lullaby Road by James Anderson. It's a very cool cover. Okay, I'm almost done. Jonathan Lethem. I just thought, what if I already have this book? The Feral Detective. I do not have it, but it looks like the cover of something else. And I thought, oh my gosh, what if I ordered 2 books on sale? Anyway, it says signed first edition. So from Book Outlet, got us a signed first edition. I don't like that they put a sticker on it, but it feels like a peel away sticker. Dog break. Okay, sorry, dog break. One dog likes to bark at any people that they see, and one dog likes to bark at any squirrels that they see. So I feel like there's always one dog barking all the time. Okay, here's the other Tom Rosenstiel one, and this is Oppo, like opposition. And this one looks like it's going to be a political mystery or political thriller. And then the last one is Dahlia Black by Keith Thomas. And there's just praise on the back. So I have no idea what most of these books are about. And that's why I like to just shove them at the front of one of these, so that if you see something that you've read and you enjoyed or you didn't enjoy, you can let me know. And also if you see something that you're like, oh, you need to read that one, or I've been wanting to read that one, let's do it together. You kind of know what books I have, but I don't have to do a separate video where I say, here's this book, and I don't know anything about it. So that's why I do it at the beginning of these. So that was a really quick, just going through that list of books that I got. I don't really have any other announcements. I do have a TBR video that's coming up next week. Well, it's coming out on the last day of September. And it is talking about how I'm going to be doing my TBR differently going forward. So that's going to change a little bit, but that doesn't matter for right now. So let's talk about my new subscribers. I got this idea from Kate at the Literary Apothecary, and I thought it was such a great idea to give a shout out to the new subscribers. So I have Cozy Reading with Quaker Cats, William Doglish, and Ann Edwards. So thank you guys so much for subscribing to my channel. I love that I'm able to talk to people in the comments and hear what you're reading and hear what you think about what I'm reading and just keep the conversation going. Okay, the books that I finished this week. I finished 6 books this week, and they are all over the place as far as genres go. So I'm going to be looking over here to read them. I finished 2 fantasies. The first one is The Eyes of the Dragon by Stephen King. This book will be talked about in depth when I do my Dark Tower update. So I will just say that I really enjoyed it. It's like a medieval fantasy book. I am continually amazed at the genres that Stephen King can write in and still make sense, like still make it good. And I think it's because he can just write really good characters. And if you can write a character, you can generally put that character almost anywhere. So I love it. I liked this so much. It super connects to the Dark Tower, which I'll go into more depth in the Dark Tower video. That'll be coming up in a few weeks when I have some other stuff to talk about as well. Okay, the other fantasy book I read was The Rave by J.R. Trask. First of all, when you're reading a book and the author is available to you, meaning you can message them. So I know that there are a lot of authors that are on Twitter and they message back and forth with people who are on Twitter. And I just think that having that level of connection, number one, it's fantastic. There are good and bads to it. Number one, it's fantastic because you can ask them questions, you can get information that you wouldn't be able to get if you weren't able to just like say, why did you do this and where did this come from, and I like how this happened and I didn't like how this happened, like go through that. And so he is on the Discord server for the Shelf Space Discord. No, for the Shelf Published in Discord. So I will link that below. His book was picked for last month to be the book that everybody read, the book of the month. And so generally when they do that, they always have a little section where the author is in there and you can ask them questions. And so the good part, I said, is that they get to answer everything. The bad side is that sometimes you don't want to say the things that you don't like about a book because the author is there, they're going to read it. And so this time when I went in, because I read it after everybody else. And so like I was the only one posting in there, and then he was responding back to me, and I was like, okay, I'm going to just be completely truthful about this. And so I told him, I was like, the main character, her name is Alina. She's 17 years old. She got on my nerves so badly a lot of the time. She just made stupid decisions, and actually they're probably perfectly 17-year-old decisions, but for my 44-year-old brain, they were so dumb. However, I still absolutely loved this book. So if you give me a main character that I don't really like and I still like your book, then you have done a really good job at writing. And that doesn't happen all the time, but it did happen in another book recently that I was talking to somebody about, and I was like, I don't connect to this main character at all. She gets on my nerves, and yet I really like this book. So it's the same way with The Rave. This is definitely a YA. I don't know if he's calling it fantasy or sci-fi. I've been just saying sci-fi fantasy because there are definitely some sci-fi elements and there are definitely some fantasy elements. So let me tell you about the book really quickly and then we'll move on. But we start out with Alina. Well, we don't really start out with her, but whatever. As soon as we meet her, she is in over her head, we will say. She is a elf raver, or she's wanting to be one. And all that means is that she hunts elf. And it's spelled A-E-L-F. It's not like an elf in the woods. So I don't really know how you pronounce it. I just want to say elf because that's easier for me. But I need you to know that it's not like the pointy-eared elves. There are many different kinds of elves. It kind of just means anything that's not human, I think. There's also a glossary in the back of this book, which is really nice if you want to read the definitions of all the people and all the things that they talk about. So anyway, there are levels of these elves. Some of them are just mindless kind of animal type things. And then some of them have much higher thinking abilities. Some of them feed in different ways. And so we meet a few as we go through this book. We meet a lot, actually, as we go through the book. But at the beginning, she is hired by the police to come and get this elf who is harassing people and potentially killing them. We don't really know yet when she first gets there. And so anyway, she, though, has decided not to kill. So even if it's an elf and even if it is a bad elf, which they think all of them are bad, she is decided not to kill it. And so she has come up with the very cool, like, most creative way to get around this. And I forgot to even tell J.R. Trask that I thought that was, like, genius. How she gets rid of this thing without actually killing it. And then later on, all the stuff that comes out about it, like, very cool. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you because I want you to read it. And then she has to go on a trip because there is a giant elf. They're calling him, I don't mean giant as in large. I just mean giant as in creating a giant problem in the main city. And if you look at this book cover right here, I didn't know this when I started reading it, but that giant blob in the middle, that big thing, that is the capital city. And so if you look at it closely, those are like buildings and stuff. I just thought it was a big spiky ball. I didn't look at it at first. Anyway, very cool. They're calling it, well, the city is called New El, like E-L, and they are there is a elf who is like tormenting some of the people in the city. And so they've like called out a general call to all elf ravers, like, please come, we're having a rave, and we need you to take care of the Bane of New El, they call it. And so she's like, this is my chance to get out. She doesn't have any money. She's all by herself. She's an orphan. And so we find out through her doing things how she gets to the city, and then she starts hunting the Bane of New El along with every other elf raver all around, because they all want it. They want the money. They want to destroy it. They want to kill it. She just wants to fix it. Or not fix it, but she just wants to find it without killing it. So anyway, it is such a good book. The side characters are so good. They were my favorites. He asked in the thing who your favorite characters were, and I listed like 4 of the side characters before I even got to Alina. So the side characters are fantastic. This is going to be a trilogy, and the next book is coming out in February of 2022. And so I'm definitely looking forward to that, and I will be reading it. And I'm hoping that he can do these in audio, because I think that would be really cool, and I would love to listen to them on audio. Okay, I promise not to take that much time with all the books. I just finished it, and it was somebody that I got to talk to, so I really enjoyed it. Okay, the next thing I read was one sci-fi book, and that's called The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. I read this with Ursi from Cersei's Book, and this book frustrated me. It frustrated me is all I can say about it. They're on an island in a undisclosed location. Things are disappearing from their lives. So first it's like a music box. I mean, there's all these things. This has been happening forever and ever. And we kind of jump in where this girl is an adult, and she remembers the things that her mother would show her as a kid and be like, this is a ball. And so she's like, we don't have those anymore. It's always random when things disappear. Like, they don't know that it's going to, although she thinks she can start to feel when things are going to disappear. I need to take another dog break. I'm sorry. Okay, so now Little Bit needs to be up here and talk about some fantasy books. So things start disappearing around them, and it's weird because I thought this was just going to be that they were telling them they can no longer have, let's just pick something. I'm going to say, I don't want to use something from the thing, so I'm just going to say computers. Like, let's say they can no longer have computers. I thought this book was just going to be like the government or whatever coming in and taking away all the computers and being like, now computers are not a thing anymore. But there is something that is happening in their brains where they don't remember what a computer is, and they're looking at a computer and they just think, well, I don't know what that is, so that just needs to go away. Like, I don't know why it's here or why we have it or anything. So things don't mean anything to them anymore, and they don't know what the word computer means anymore, and so they just get rid of it. Well, what we find out is there are some people who have a certain kind of genetics, and they remember. And so then they start being hunted by the memory police, and our main character has somebody close to her that she discovers has the memories. And so she does this elaborate plan to hide this person, and that's kind of what this story is. And it was a great premise, and I really would have seen it, I would have loved to seen it written differently, or the focus to be different than what it was, but it was okay. And like I said, I was really frustrated reading this book. Okay, now I read one general fiction book called Where the Forest Meets the Stars by Glendy Vanderaa. I've been talking about this because this was my book club book, and it was really good. Like, it was just one of those feel-good books where you're like, you know, there's this woman and she's had a lot of hardships in her life, and she's doing some graduate school work, and this girl shows up, and the little girl says, I'm an alien and I came from this planet, and she knows the name of the solar system where they came from, and it's a real place. And so the lady's like, this little girl is like 8 years old and knows all this stuff. maybe she's actually an alien. Like, she has this whole elaborate backstory. And so you spend a lot of the book going, I don't think she's an alien, but it's always in the back of your mind where you're like, she could be an alien. Like, so anyway, it was just a really good book. I just felt good reading it. I felt good at the end of it. It does deal with some family traumas in both her family and one of the other characters that we meet. And it's got some mental health discussion in it, just about depression and how it's not just something that you can be like, okay, I'm all better, let's go. Like, so I thought it handled that really well. I'm not speaking from a personal experience, so take that for what it is. Okay, I read one horror book, and this was my 5-star read for the week, and it is Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. I've never read any of his books before. I've heard about them, and if you've been watching before, I wasn't planning on reading this. I didn't have it on my TBR. That is the story of my life. I also didn't have it listed last week when I talked about what I wanted to read, but I knew that I wanted to read it, and I had been discussing it in the Discord channel for Leslie at the Nerdy Narrative, her Discord channel. We talked about it a while ago, and I thought, oh yeah, I want to read that. And so she posted and tagged somebody else, and she said, are you ready to read Horror Store tomorrow? And when I saw the tag, I was like, me, I want to read it too, which is my problem with every book I try to put on my TBR. Anyway, I just read it. It was really short and it was so good. I liked it so much. There's a big giant box store, not a big box store. There's a big giant store like IKEA. And, if you've been in an IKEA, everything is set up like rooms and you're guided along the path and you have to walk in a certain order to get to the end. And there are a few shortcuts and things like that. So it's set up exactly the same. They even mention like they're copying IKEA, but it's called Orsk, I think is the name of their store. Anyway, we join them one morning when our main character, is getting to work, and they notice that things are happening around the store. Like, there's dirt here, there's junk, this is broken over here, and they're like, what is the night shift doing? Well, so the manager comes in, the day manager, and he's like, the night shift is not doing this, so they say, so we think something else is going on, somebody's sneaking in, or somebody's living here, after hours. So he got a couple of the employees and said, we're going to come back tonight and we're going to stay here and figure out what's happening. And so that's what the general story is what happens over that night and what's going on in the store, what's really happening in the store. This was such a good book. I loved it. It had a very satisfying ending, but not in the way that I was expecting. So don't go in and think, oh, she said it had a good ending, so this is what's going to happen, because I enjoyed the ending and I thought it was very satisfying. It, however, was not what I was expecting it to be. So see if you like the ending after you read it. It's really short. Just jump in and read it. Okay, the last book I read was historical fiction, The Forest of Vanishing Stars by Kristen Harmel. Again, not a book that was on my TBR. I was sitting at dinner and someone said, oh, we're reading this for our book club. And I was like, wait, what about a book club that I don't know about? And so they said, yeah, it's in 4 days. So I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to read this book in 4 days so that I can go to the book club. So I read it. I did the book club with them. It was really good and led to some really good discussions. But here's about the book. So they are living in, this girl has been kidnapped by an old lady. And the old lady has taken her to the forest, and it is in a forest just outside of Poland. It used to be part of Poland, and then it was Belarus, and then it was, so anyway, it's changed hands quite a few times, we'll say. But that's where the story is set, in that forest in the 1930s, and she has been kidnapped as a 2-year-old and taken to the forest. So she's raised there. It's been 12 years. She's 24 years old. The old lady passes away. This is right at the beginning. I'm not giving anything away. The old lady passes away, and so she's like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. Before she passes away, she tells her the name of her parents. And so now the girl is like, I know who they are. Am I going to go get them? Am I going to go find out where they are or who they are or whatever? And at the same time, people start coming into the forest because they're being hunted. And she starts meeting all these Jewish families and groups that have escaped from the different ghettos around this forest. and she starts trying to help them because she knows how to live in the forest and they don't. And so that's what unfolds the whole thing, is that she's using the knowledge that she's gained from growing up in the forest to help these groups that are out there living in the forest. And so a lot of the stuff is based on true stories that happened, and she, the author, did a ton of research about this, and it's just such a good book. The forest comes alive. Like, I could feel the swamp, I could feel them being in the forest, and just the terror of being hunted, and that any moment somebody could just walk up with a gun. Like, that was so real. And so this was just such a good book. I don't generally read adult historical fiction, you know, if you've been here, but this was such a good book. And the good thing about my book club, my new book club now, is that they read books from all genres. So the one for next month, which is also not on my TBR, is not historical fiction. It's something else. So anyway, that's going to be fun, and I'm excited about doing that. And that's everything that I read. I am going to try to go through this quickly, but I will say the only books that I got to mark off of my TBR for this month were The Eyes of the Dragon and The Memory Police. So, I mean, this week. So out of those 6 books that I finished this week, only 2 were on my TBR. So I'm just not doing well sticking to my TBR. Okay, what am I reading right now? I'm reading from scratch still. This is the Food Network book. I'm right here, so I'm a little over halfway. And it's not great. It's a whole lot of facts and a whole lot of people vying for the top spot there. So anyway, I'll talk about it more next week. I should definitely be finished with it. And I'm reading The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. I've never read this. I've seen the movies, and I'm listening to the audio book done by Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis played Gollum in the movies. So he's doing such a good job with all the voices. I know for sure that he would be able to do Gollum's voice, although I haven't really gotten to Gollum yet where I am. But he is so good at all the Hobbit voices and everything. I love it. Anyway, I'm not going to go too much into that because I'll talk about that next week. And what else am I going to read next week? So I've got 2 more books that are both on my TBR. I'm going to be reading Exile, which is my next Dritz book from R.A. Salvatore. And I'm going to be reading The Woman Who Rides Like a Man, which is my next Tamara Pierce book. So I should be able to finish both of those. I'm taking a pretty long trip at the beginning of next week, which also means maybe I won't have an update. So you might have to wait 2 weeks to get a giant update of everything that I've read. That is it. I have talked for a really long time, and if you stuck around this long, I'm so glad. And I would love to know what you're reading. Maybe you read any of these that I talked about today. Maybe you're reading something that I'm going to read. So I would really like to know what it is that you're reading. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.